So today, Philly and I want to show you how you can give yourself a lunge line lesson to improve your seat and to give yourself a little bit of a tune out. And you can actually do it without a lunge line and without anybody in the middle standing and guiding you. You can just, tune yourself, have a few things that you remember as you're riding, and just kind of go into that meditative state where you're going to say, I'm just going to stay on a large circle. I may change directions occasionally, but just going to focus on my seat for a little while, especially in the sitting trot is something that we all can always use over and over. And we always have to remember, ideally, we want to be very symmetrical with everything that we're doing, but that is such an idealistic perspective. None of us really do have everything even left to right. Just like the horses, we all have to work with our own natural unevenness, meaning that most people have a little bit less strength and coordination in their left side, or if you're left-handed, the other way. And so this is just to get you sort of into that mindset. You can always repeat it, in between other things that you're doing, but I like to have the stirrups away for a little bit. I took them and just put them over the shoulders of the horse, and usually just start to visualize a little bit of what I want to feel in myself. I want just the horse just goes on the long rein, and I usually like to start at the top of my physical, alignment, and think that I personally have a tendency to be overly flexible through everything, through my whole body, and comes out especially in the walk and in the way my head moves, sometimes a little bit more than I would like it to. So there are two things to, think about that. One is you could imagine that you have your head is a pear, and there's a stem at the top of the pear, and it gets gently lifted up at the top of the stem. And what that does, that picture, that metaphor, is that it prevents that you're becoming too stiff with your head. There are ways of, blocking yourself and your neck vertebrae, where that then blocks the whole motion that you're trying to absorb from your horse's wave motions that come through his or her back. And if you're too stiff up there with your head, that's not going to help. It's just going to block, and it's going to feel to the horse as if it's constantly hitting something. So you don't want to do that. The other visual that could be helpful is that as you're riding, visualize that you're carrying a book on your head. That's another very common thing that people like to do. And again, just watch for it not being too much of a rigid image or feel, so that you can always think, yes, a little bit of movement is allowed and good. And so much for the head. Then I usually like to roll my shoulders back a little bit like this. You can do it several times to check on your tension right here where your shoulders blades are. If there's more, you can expand on that a little bit, and you can actually do a little bit of a arm swivel like this, and just kind of hold the reins with one hand and just rotate your arm like a windmill. And then you can, after a while, change to the other side. And just gently, slowly, but very regularly, just, rotate. And that helps you with if you have anything in your shoulder, rotator cuff, all these different areas that could be tense and need a little bit of loosening. Shoulders rolling back again, and just think that you may have, and I always like to use that visual of a weighted ball. It could be the size of a tennis ball, but imagine it's made of some heavy metal. Maybe it's iron or something like that. And you have, in each of your shoulder, you have one of those weighted balls. So that makes your shoulders automatically drop down. And rather than thinking shoulders back, which then a lot of times ends up making people sort of invert their back, and also then it goes into this kind of deal, which is also not a very, very helpful, because it makes everything tight and doesn't, of course, look great either, but it's more important on how it does not work. To always absorb the motion of your horse that you have underneath you. So think balls, heavy weighted balls in your shoulders, and then think perhaps, if anything, on your sternum you can imagine a silk thread that might pull your sternum gently forward and upward. That again is a gentler image than anything else, than the voices that you may hear in your head that keep saying shoulders back, which at some point or another most of us have heard that. So think about those things, the silk thread and the weighted balls in your shoulders that are more helpful to keep your chest open and to keep some level of flexibility in your upper body. And then we're moving down to your elbows, right? Elbows too imagine another set of weighted metal balls in the joints. And that helps you thinking that you want to leave your upper arm aligned straight downward vertically. And very rarely is it helpful to ride with straight arms, maybe a little bit forward at times, once you get to the more elevated and the more upper level movements and your horse is more collected. You want to carry your hands a little bit more forward like this. But in general, if you think about it, here is your normal, medium walk contact where, the reins could be shorter or longer, but that's kind of where your elbows want to be. And we'll get to that in a little bit more detail in the sitting trot in a moment. So then the fingers also, you can do a little piano playing just to warm up your hands and your fingers in case there's any stiffness or joint pain there. A little piano playing, left, right, warm it up. And then, as we're moving further down, I want you to get in touch with the sensation of where your psoas muscles are. And the easiest way to do that is to lean back a little bit, like I'm doing right now, to exaggerate a little bit. I go a little bit behind the vertical, and I can now start to feel my stomach muscles and my psoas muscles. And those are the main muscle groups that are helping you with your balance. Not so much the gripping of your legs, which is, our first instinct, of course, as a human, but this is not what is helpful later on when you want to become a little bit more of a refined rider with your balancing system internally. So then you're going to go, okay, so I can feel my stomach, I have weight everywhere in my upper body, I can have loose piano fingers, and then you're going to go into feeling your knees. And your knee pressure is always something that changes a little bit, but I always say there's usually, most of the time, there's a little bit of positive tension in the knees, meaning the knee closure, the amount of pressure that your knee puts onto the saddle or onto the torso of your horse has to be enough so that when you want to use your lower legs and put different positions, for example, into your lower legs, like you want to maybe move your leg a little bit more forward like this, or here is your neutral, or here is your slow down button, and I'm exaggerating it. It's different on different horses, but you want to be able to have a little bit of an anchor point in your knee so that it's not like you're not gripping on for dear life with it, but enough of a little anchor is probably the best way that I can describe it, right? So then we're getting to the lower part, the ankles. You can always rotate your ankles or your toes a little bit, twirl them around a little bit to warm up your ankles. It's always another interesting part where we can really get very quickly a little bit blocked. So then you have that, and then you think, okay, so that starts to feel pretty good, and then your toes go forward and up a little bit, and it depends on your level of comfort, what you can do for how long without stirrups, without getting a cramp in, your calf or your upper thigh. Just, every once in a while, relax them, droop them, let them drop down a little bit, and just kind of twirl them a little bit when you just want to relax for a moment. But in general, the toe up and pointing forward position automatically, brings your calf muscles into a tenser condition, which the horse can feel better when you start giving little impulses. If your toes are down, your calf muscle gets soft, and it's like putting against the horse, and the horse can't read that very well. Okay, so here we are. Now we have all the major things in place just to, get us started in the walk. And then I'm going to say, let's pick up the reins gradually and go into a little bit of a sitting trot. And what I'm also doing is I'm possibly bridging my reins a little bit. That can be another help for you not to get too handsy as you are getting into the sitting trot. So, and we're just going into this very nice, easy going, very unhurried sitting trot. And as I'm in this trot, I'm going through my list again. I'm starting at the top of my head and thinking, can I feel the stem of the pear helping my head to be pulled up, so that I can comfortably, absorb the motion still through my neck that my horse is offering me from trotting underneath me. And then I'm going further down into my shoulders. Do I feel how my shoulders are dropping down, as if I have weighted balls in each one of my shoulder joints? And then I go down further. Elbows, are they weighted? Are they nicely connected to the sides of my rib cage? It doesn't have to be very, tense or tight, but it has to be so that you feel a little bit of positive tension throughout your whole upper body. Then we're going to get to your hands. Hands are really important in terms of what we want to feel. So close even your eyes for a few steps and think, can you feel your horse's mouth on the inside of your ring finger or middle finger or wherever you have your reins running through your hands? And just visualize for a moment, what kind of feel do I want to have? What kind of feel do I have? And with Philly, for example, Philly has a super light mouth, almost a little scared of the contact, so I always have to be very, very careful with what I do and what I offer her with my hands so that she doesn't get offended or scared. And of course, then we go farther down into our core muscles again. Lean back a little bit on your seat bones, upper body back a little bit behind the vertical so that you can feel the psoas muscles. And enjoy that for a moment. It's a really nice feeling to know that they're there, that they're holding you in place, right? So now I want to go farther down again into the knees, probably in the sitting trot. You're going to have a little bit more positive tension than in the walk in both knees, so that you can, not just, stay aligned evenly in the saddle, but also that your lower legs have the same mobility and capacity for, either going forward a little bit or backward a little bit if you needed to change the position. So, talking a lot. And then the heels again. The heels have also weighted balls in them, so they stay nice and low. Come, good girl, yeah. So, and that's the last part before we get to the toes that point forward and inward. And that's the beginning of, you just starting to think about your alignment. You can number these points. I'm going to change directions here for a moment. So we go to the other side, and I'm going to show you a couple more things that you can do. And always think, a little bit of relaxation is always a good thing in between. If you get tired, you can, give yourself a walk break. I just wanted to show you can take both reins in one hand, and then you can also do the same swiveling of your arms, which is a really nice, exercise just for your own balance, and of course what it does at the same time, it helps you and your horse to stay in balance mode. And yes, and she's a little bit concerned here about my arms swiveling to the inside, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep going for a moment. There you go. If your horse is nervous, maybe stay away from that exercise a little bit. But what you also could do is, rather than, doing that windmill movement, you can also just put your hand in the side here for a moment. So, and just ride with one hand like this. Or you can put it behind you, and just feel how you have to compensate through the rest of your body when one hand isn't there anymore. I can definitely feel it in the way how I have to use my right leg right now. But it's also, helping me keep my right shoulder inner shoulder back, which helps her understand which way I want her to go through my seat bones. Because the shoulder angle always correlates directly to the seat bones, on which side, the same side that you're rotating your shoulder. And so then I may do this to the other side a little bit. I'm going to go change a little bit here the side again, have my outside hand stuck in my hip, so to speak, and then I put it behind my back. And this time I'm not rotating my left shoulder, because otherwise she would think that I want something different other than her to stay on this nice circle here for a little bit longer. So, very good. And just do it for as long as you can feel that you're comfortable, both of you and your horse. So, and you can expand on these things, but I'm just going to keep it at that for now. Thank you, Silly. That was great. And so much, for the idea of giving yourself a lunge line lesson on certain days. Just continue just to always think we can always work on our own natural unevenness and on our own short comings, so to speak. Just like we ask the horse, we have to ask ourselves to stay, focused and fit and elastic. And, for the horse, it's not boring either to be on the circle for a little while, because you're communicating the whole time. And so everybody wins. Hope you enjoyed this short little segment and have fun trying it, and happy riding. Good girl, my Zizi. Thank you.